What's up, everybody? It's your boy Norn Radd89 here, bringing you another Radd movie review for a film that has recently come out this year, The Bride. I went out on a movie date night with my wife to go see The Bride. This stars Christian Bale and Jessie Buckley, and I want to talk about this one because this one kind of got critically panned, and it kind of sucks because it's a really good film. In my opinion, I had a lot of fun, and my wife had even more fun than I did. So today you're going to hear my positives and negatives and then the rating for The Bride, directed by Maggie Gyllenhaal. So let's get into this. Roll it. So The Bride, directed by Maggie Gyllenhaal, is a new take on the Bride of Frankenstein story. And this one's really cool because this is something that is completely different. I've seen many Frankenstein adaptations and even many Bride of Frankenstein adaptations, and this is one that is completely out of the box, something totally new. This is like a cross between Joker meets Bonnie and Clyde. So if you're not kind of really into those films, I understand you're not going to enjoy this movie. But for me, I had a ton of fun with this film, so let's get into the positives right away. Now, my first key positive is going to be Jessie Buckley and Christian Bale. I think they do an amazing job in the lead roles. I think they have amazing chemistry, and Jessie Buckley really goes for it as the bride character in here. And she plays kind of this multiple personality character because we have this other element of the film where we have the actual writer of the book, and she's kind of, possessing her body, and it has that kind of multiple personality thing going on. So it's really cool. And I think the way that Jessie Buckley just portrays it on screen, along with the makeup and the costume design, really assists in such an amazing performance. And I think Christian Bale is a nice balance to that because she's absolutely insane and she's crazy and unhinged and off the wall, you know what I mean? And you don't know what she's going to do at any kind of moment. And I feel like Christian Bale's more the levity, the balance to that, where he is emotional, but he's more grounded as a character. But he does have moments in the film where he gets to, let out his rage or, gets that Frankenstein monster type moment, But Christian Bale is a really good additive too. And I thought the makeup design, costume design, all of that stuff really knocked it out of the park in this film and added to the period piece setting of the film. Another thing is I liked our side characters as well, which was, I believe, our detective characters. It was kind of a coinciding story that really didn't pick up till later in the film, but we meet these two detective characters played by Peter Sarsgaard and Penélope Cruz, and they come into the film, and I think it's really cool because of the duality and like the juxtaposition between the two characters, or between the four characters, because we're watching kind of Jessie Buckley's character, who is the bride, who ends up getting resurrected because, Christian Bale's character, the Frankenstein monster, he's lonely and he wants a companion to be with him forever. And he finds a scientist who's able to do that for him. And when they resurrect the bride, they kind of go on this crime spree throughout America, and that's like the Bonnie and Clyde element. And then there's a detective element to it where they're chasing them down. So I thought the duality between the four characters as they're chasing them was a really cool thing. And I thought, like, in terms of my opinion, the performances, they all knocked it out of the park because they feel like these characters. The costume designs and the cars really assist in putting you in that time period. And another thing is, too, we have some really cool musical numbers in here. And I thought that was fun, too, because I'm always a champion of just, even if you're a comedy film, a horror film, a drama, I don't care what you are. If you're going to have a musical moment in your film or a musical number, just go for it. Go for it all the way. You know what I mean? Like, it's like some people I could understand might take some viewers out of the film, but I am a champion of having just, a random musical number in the middle of your movie. It's okay. It's fine. It's not going to hurt the film, for me, in my opinion, if you commit to it. And they really commit in this movie to that moment. And this movie, when you end up watching it, by the time you get to the end, it feels like a Frankenstein stitched together movie. And I don't really mean that in a negative way. It's chaotic. It makes you feel like you're possessed, almost like the Jessie Buckley bride character. So it's all over the place, but there is a central theme throughout the film. It's just the way that the film goes in terms of pacing and in terms of getting from moment to moment and in terms of style blending. It does feel very chaotic and like a Frankenstein stitched together movie. But in my opinion, I feel like that was on purpose, and Maggie Gyllenhaal really wanted that to come across on screen and in the story. Another thing for me is that the gothic nature of this film, I wouldn't say it's necessarily horror centric there. I wanted a little bit more gore moments that will lean more into mixed and negatives, but in terms of the gothic atmosphere and the elements that they were putting into the film, you could definitely tell they're there. And there's also another element where Frankenstein's monster, he's very obsessed with old cinema, and Jake Gyllenhaal plays this one character who's this very famous actor, and Frankenstein's monster loves all of his movies. So I just really took a piece of that too, because I love cinema, and there's always that thing where sometimes you get attached to an actor or a certain person and you just really love seeing all their work. And I like how Frankenstein's monster, he was really involved with old cinema in that way. And then just adding Jessie Buckley in there as the bride, and especially the makeup design and just what it really does represent too, is another thing I could understand why people might have a problem with this film, is the women's rights movement element of this movie, which I thought was amazing. I thought that was a cool thing that they put in the film. It might be a little bit of a backdrop that's just put on the back burner, but I feel like that was more to set the stage of that time period. You know what I mean? It was kind of an alternate time period telling, but kind of still setting us up for that when the women's rights movement was coming along, and women were tired of being just sidelined or being just women in the kitchen or used that way, that they wanted to step out and become their own thing and become artists and creators and all these things. And I feel like throwing that in the film and using the bride as kind of a representation of that was a really cool thing, in my opinion, and I had a lot of fun with it. So let's talk about the mixed and negatives. And when it comes to, there's two for me that are mixed and negatives. My wife, Tommy, she loved this film, Thomasina. She think this was probably the best version of this story that she's ever seen in terms of a bride story. And it is very ambitious. If you want something new, something different, you need to go out and see this film, because it's unlike any other kind of Bride of Frankenstein story you've ever seen. But to say that, I do have a couple negatives with it, and my main one is that it's not really horror centric. I wanted a little bit more gore moments, a little bit scarier moments, anything that just kind of lended itself to more horror. Like I said, this is kind of more of a gothic mobster type film with the bride and Frankenstein monster in it, not as much horror. And me, as just being a horror fan, I would appreciate it if there was a little bit more. And my only other negative with the film is that when it comes to the possession of Jessie Buckley's character, when she's being possessed by the actual spirit of Mary Shelley, there are moments where I really loved it and I really enjoyed it. Like there's a certain scene where you see the bride's head like in a jar and she's talking to Mary Shelley. There are certain moments where I really loved it, but there were other moments where it kind of was a little bit cringy and it just kind of took me out of the film a little bit. But that's just the only two negatives I had with this film. Besides that, I had an absolute blast with this film, and I think this is one of the most creative and interesting ideas they've ever done with the Bride of Frankenstein story. And I think Maggie Gyllenhaal, in my opinion, did an absolutely beautiful job. And in terms of my opinion for the Radd rating, The Bride is going to get it a 9 out of 10. This is a very solid film and one of my favorites so far of the year. I haven't seen a lot of films this year. I haven't really gotten a chance to go to the theaters or check out a lot of films, but in terms of my enjoyment and just the date night with my wife and seeing it and how much we were just, talking in the car, and when we got home, there was so much to digest and dissect about this film, because I think the themes and the elements to this film are really there, and I think the performances, they knock it out of the park. So yeah, The Bride is one of those films that I highly recommend you go check out in theaters. But these are just my opinions and my thoughts on The Bride. Please let me know down below in the comment section, what are your opinions on this film? But most importantly, you all know what's up. Have a safe and happy day. Peace out.